At least 17 Palestinians were killed according to Gaza's health ministry as overnight Israeli airstrikes target the enclave. Poland's presidential race officially begins with 11 candidates launching their bids for office in the May 18th first-round vote. Classes remain cancelled at Eindhoven University of Technology following a network breach over the weekend.
TikTok users are flocking to a Chinese social media app as a potential ban of TikTok looms in the US.
At least 17 Palestinians were killed as Israeli airstrikes hit central Gaza. Gaza's health ministry says an attack on a house in Deir al-Balah killed 11 people whose bodies were brought to Al-Aqsa Martyrs Hospital. Another strike in the densely populated Nusayrat refugee camp killed 6 others and wounded 7 more. The Hamas-run health ministry says Israel's war on Gaza has killed more than 46,000 Palestinians in 15 months of fighting. The fresh attacks come as Israel and Hamas appear to be narrowing in on a ceasefire deal. The pair have been engaging in ceasefire talks brokered by the United States along with Qatar and Egypt. The deal, structured in 3 phases, would see the release of dozens of hostages held under Hamas captivity in Gaza, the release of 1,000 Palestinian prisoners in Israel, and weeks of peace. Hamas has accepted a draft agreement for a ceasefire in Gaza. Israeli officials say progress has been made, but details of the deal have not yet been finalized. White House National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan says there is hope the deal will close out this week. The presidential race has officially begun in Poland, with the first round taking place on May 18th. 11 candidates have announced their run for the office. The Polish governing coalition relies heavily on the results of this election. The current president, Andrzej Duda, comes from the right-wing opposition Law and Justice Party and has the power to veto pieces of legislation proposed in parliament. The main issues of the campaign so far include abortion rights, civil partnerships, the rule of law, and security, the last of which is especially relevant in the context of the ongoing war in Ukraine. According to the latest polls, Warsaw Mayor Rafał Trzaskowski is the current favorite to win. His greatest competitor is Karol Nawrocki, a candidate running in name as an independent, but who's endorsed by the Law and Justice Party and who currently heads the Polish Institute of National Remembrance. Polling in third place is Sławomir Mencen from the right-wing Konfederacja Party, but the race is expected to be a close competition between the 2 favorites. Trzaskowski's party, the Civic Coalition, is described as a centrist pro-European, whereas Nawrocki's Law and Justice Party is described as more skeptical of the European Union. In the last presidential elections, which took place in 2020, Trzaskowski narrowly lost to incumbent Andrzej Duda, who is no longer eligible to run due to term limits. That year, over 10 million Poles voted for each of the 2 candidates. Only Lech Wałęsa, the first president of Poland to be elected after the fall of communism, received a higher number of votes. If a majority of Poles do not vote for any of the candidates in the first round, a second round between the top 2 candidates will take place on the 1st of June.
NATO Secretary-General Mark Rutte announced the alliance is launching a new mission to protect undersea cables in the Baltic Sea region. His announcement comes following a string of incidents in the Baltic that have heightened concerns about possible Russian activity in the region, including the suspected sabotage of undersea cables.
This military activity is part of our ongoing effort to enhance maritime presence and monitoring of key areas for our alliance. It will involve a range of assets, including frigates and maritime patrol aircraft, among others, and will enhance our vigilance in the Baltic.
Rutte said NATO adversaries must know the alliance will not accept attacks on its critical infrastructure, with Estonia's Prime Minister adding that plans were in place for the Baltics to be cut free from the Russian energy sector.
South Korea's impeached president Yoon Suk-yeol was detained by hundreds of police and anti-corruption officials for questioning over his imposition of martial law last month. They are now investigating whether his short-lived decision amounted to attempted rebellion. He insists the anti-corruption agency doesn't have the authority to investigate his actions, but that he complied to prevent violence. He said his declaration of martial law was justified as a legitimate act of governance against an anti-state opposition.
Classes are still cancelled at Eindhoven University of Technology in the Netherlands following a cyber attack over the weekend. The attack was reported at 9 p.m. on Saturday by the university's IT department. They say they noticed unusually heavy and suspicious traffic on the university's digital platform and have since made the decision to take the servers offline. The shutdown of the university's network has caused major disruptions to faculty members who lost access to platforms needed for their jobs.
Ja, nou, ik ben een medewerker en sommige dingetjes die kunnen toch doorgaan, sommige vergaderingen.
The network breach came at a time when students are preparing for exams and assessments.
We hebben vooral problemen om bij al het lesmateriaal te komen, want er komen tentamens aan volgende week en dat is wel vervelend.
The university has been the target of cyberattacks in the past. Students say more needs to be done to enhance network security.
This is also not the first time that the university gets hacked, and I think it's just a major problem. And for example, the way the university gets hacked is more advanced every time. I think now with the development of AI, phishing is more advanced than other techniques that hackers may employ. Maybe the university needs funds to secure its systems, of course, because research here is really important.
The university's administration has announced that all exams and assessments scheduled for the 20th of January will be postponed by 1 week. It also added that its IT department is making progress in countering the breach and expects students to regain access by Monday.
As the threat of a TikTok ban looms, some US TikTok users are flocking to Chinese social media app Xiaohongshu, making it the top downloaded app in the US. Users landed on the app called Little Red Book in English as an alternative to TikTok, with some saying they specifically picked the Chinese app to protest the TikTok ban.
Today, it has grown into a popular platform for young people to share practical tips or tutorials on various topics like beauty, fashion, fitness, adventure, or even career advice. The app has over 300 million monthly active users, and most of them are young female living in the big cities.
The US Supreme Court is due to rule on whether TikTok must divest from its Chinese parent company or be banned in the US over security concerns. Masses of TikTok users joined the Chinese app using hashtags such as TikTok refugee.
Since yesterday, we have seen many new posts in English calling themselves the TikTok refugees, and the reaction from the Chinese users have been mixed. Some believe this is a great way the Chinese culture get to a global audience, while some worries this will be a cultural invasion and it might have an impact on the censorship.
Little Red Book has become the top downloaded free app on the US App Store, but it is not clear if the app will serve as a sustainable replacement for TikTok.
We have spent the last 4 years.
The European Union and the United Kingdom are the most skeptical about Donald Trump's return to the White House as US president, according to a study conducted by the European Council on Foreign Relations over 24 countries. The historical European allies' skepticism contrasts with the more positive opinion emerging elsewhere in the world. But historian Timothy Garton explains why Europe is wary.
What do we have in common? We're both US allies who depend on the US for our security. So that's a very telling and dramatic finding. You know, we already face a world of transactional great powers, Russia, China, India, Brazil, South Africa. And you know what? With Donald Trump, we see the United States, for the first time since 1945, again becoming a kind of transactional great power. That's why countries like China or Russia or India are quite relaxed about it, and we're definitely not.
For the historian, one of Europe's main challenges will be presenting a united front to the next US president, but also to the entire international stage in order to influence geopolitical decisions. According to the survey, the EU is considered by many citizens to be on par with the United States and China.
We asked the question whether the EU can deal as an equal with the US and China. I expected most of the world to be skeptical. Actually, the world has quite a positive view. Majorities or pluralities say yes. So in a way, we Europeans don't have enough confidence in our own power. But of course, it's potential power. We have to make it actual.
The authors of the report say that the differences in how the US and Europe are seen show that the West is no longer a single united geopolitical force. However, it is still the strongest international military alliance, according to the historian.
3, 2, 1. Ignition.
SpaceX launched a pair of lunar landers on Wednesday for two separate companies, the latest in a stream of private spacecraft aiming for the moon. The Tokyo-based iSpace plans to test potential food and water sources for future explorers, while Texas-based Firefly Aerospace is flying 10 experiments for NASA. The two shared the ride to save money, but parted an hour into the flight to take separate routes to their shared destination.
Euronews. The news